Hello, I'm Nicole Anderson and this is Beauty and the Brains. Today I'm doing a bilingual video in English and Spanish because I want to discuss the folklore of La Llorona. I will not be discussing an actual book with you today because this is an oral history, and oral history culture is a huge part of the horror genre. That's where the horror genre started. That's where, well, basically all of history started. And yeah, so hopefully it goes well and hopefully you actually understand me when I do speak Spanish. So, hoy estoy haciendo una versión bilingual en inglés y español. Te voy a contar la cuenta de La Llorona. Durante de ese cuenta voy a convertirme en una calavera de azúcar, de Día de los Muertos. I'm Chilean on my mother's side, and the cultural narrative of La Llorona is very important to us there. But Chileans do not have a Day of the Dead. We do have a Saints' Day though, like as an All Saints' Day. It's a Catholic thing because the country is predominantly Catholic. I was not raised in Chile, but I was raised in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where there are very, very few Chileans, and it is predominantly a Mexican Hispanic culture there. And so that was the only culture that we could find that was close enough. So I grew up in the Mexican culture there, and so Dia de los Muertos and the Sugar Skull is very nostalgic to me. And so with that being said, let's get spooky. La Llorona is a tricky cuenta to tell because people fight over where it originates from. The story is found all over Latin America, but I will take the side of the story is most popular in Mexico. Even though we have the story in Chile, I do still consider it to be mostly a Mexican story. Now there are a lot of stories that are super similar to La Llorona all over the world. I mean, una mujer llorando es común. La Llorona dates back to los conquistador tiempos. La Malinche, who is a Nuaja woman, her job was to interpret the language of the Aztecs to Hernán Cortés. However, she was also su mujer de lao, and she bore him a son. Depending on what source you want to believe in, you could say that historically that this son was the very first time that a European had offspring with a Native American, or if you prefer the term, Mesoamerican woman. And there was all sorts of fucking family drama. I mean, this was probably the origins of La Comedia. I mean, you got a woman, she gets impregnated by this man who's of like a richer, whiter, like ranchero, conquistador origin, and then you have like this like very sweet Mexican lady, and then she's done wrong, and then it's just, there's this baby, and it's una comedia, really. Like, it goes back to conquistador times. Yeah, so he didn't want this son, and she was so in love with Hernán Cortés. Well, I don't know if that was really true or not, but that's what the story says, is that she was very in love with Hernán Cortés, and she was so saddened by how he just didn't want to say that the son was legitimate. I mean, come on, he's a Spanish man, they're Christian or Catholic or whatever the who, and they're just like, oh, well, we didn't get married, so the son doesn't count, and on top of it, I'm racist as fuck, and you know how it went. You know how it went. It ended badly. So she's the origins, they say, of La Llorona. Los otros cuentas de La Llorona, si eres interesado, son de España y de Grecia. Hay cuentas de Eva y Lilith en hebreo, y en el griego tienen que ver con la era y la mía, y también Medea y varias otras. The roots, this is so hard, oh my god. Yeah, the roots of La Llorona are so uncertain, they're so unclear, just because there are so many cultures that have such a similar narrative. Like I said before, a weeping woman is very typical. If you lose your children, it's very typical, and it's just a folklore emblem of what it's like to be, or what it was like to be a woman in these more ancient times. Even before Hernán Cortés, the reason why I believe that La Llorona is more so of a Mexican tale is because it even has a pre-Hispanic narrative. Hay un dios azteca que se llama Ok. Voy a tratar de decir esto. Chihuacotal. No sé. La cuenta de la Llorona viene de este dios azteca y tiene que ver con Día de los Muertos y todo de eso. También tiene que ver con que el muerto, no como en la cultura de España, como de la Biblia, que muerto es un hombre, o no sé qué cómo es, pero en los tiempos de los aztecas con los dioses, muerto era una mujer. La cuenta de la Llorona, que todos sabemos, es una cuenta para los niños. Y sirve. The story works really well if you have a rowdy kid who does not obey and likes to stay out, you know, at his friend's house and doesn't come home before dinner or before the street lights turn on. You can just lay it on them that, listen, if you're out late at night without a chaperone, La Llorona is gonna come and you're gonna die. Yeah, Latinos don't fuck around. What I love about La Llorona is it is slightly different in every single Latino American country, but more than that is that every family tells it slightly differently. And that's just the nature of oral history, which is most of history. I am going to tell you the way that my mom would tell it to me and my sister. En los tiempos pasados había una mujer que vivía en un pueblo de Chile. Remember that it's all over Latin America, so we switch up the plot location depending on where we're from. Yeah. Dicen que ella era la más linda mujer en todo el pueblo, pero su esposo la engañaba. Pero no era la culpa del esposo, porque la mujer que engañaba con era una bruja mala. El hombre amaba a su esposa y sus dos niñitos, pero la bruja, con cada noche, metía más profundo el hombre en su terrible plan. La linda mujer ya vivía sola con sus hijos y necesitaba ayuda de su tío. Ella dejó a los niños durmiendo en sus camas por nada más de 10 minutos. Cuando ella y su tío llegaron atrás, los niños no estaban. Inmediatamente ella corrió al río atrás de la casa. Allí ella encontró sus niños muertos. Pero el corriente era demasiado fuerte y ella no pudo alcanzar a salvarlos. Convertida con pena, ella lanzó su misma al río a matarse. La mujer que era más linda del pueblo nunca supo dónde el río trajo sus niños muertos ni quién lo hizo. Pero los niños sobrevivieron. Los cuerpos de los niños llegaron al banque enfrente de la casa de la bruja mala. Ella hizo una poción para resucitarlos, también con una maldición para hacerlos invisibles para todo el pueblo. La mujer más linda del pueblo se murió, pero con su pena tan fuerte, ella no pudo entrar al cielo. Ella tuvo que vagar las calles del pueblo a encontrar al matador de sus niños. Y también encontrar a sus niños ya muertos y traerlos al cielo. Ella nunca lo encontró. Hasta hoy día, gente dicen que habían visto una mujer muy linda volando en el cielo bien lento, mirando las calles y los ríos. Dicen que como ella nunca encontró a sus niños, ella empezó a robar cualquier niño que ella encontraba en la calle que no es acompañado con su mamá o papá después que el sol se baja. I've decided that I don't want to close caption this video because that's just going to take way too much time and I have homework to do. So I'm just going to briefly retell the story in English for everybody who doesn't understand Spanish. So here we go. A long time ago, there was a very beautiful woman who lived in a small Chilean town. And now, like I said in the original Spanish, we just changed the location depending on where we are from, where the storyteller is from originally. They say that she was the most beautiful woman in the whole town. But unfortunately, she had a husband who cheated on her. But it wasn't his fault because the woman he was cheating on was an evil witch. The man loved his wife and his 2 little boys, but every single day the witch brought him further and further into her plan. So now this very beautiful woman is living completely alone with her 2 kids, and she needs help. And so she goes to her uncle's house for no more than 10 minutes, and when they get back to the house, the kids are not there. This makeup look was way too difficult for me to keep talking and doing it at the same time, so this is the finished look, and I'm just going to continue on with the story. She runs to the river behind her house, and there in the water she finds her dead children. But the current is way too strong, and no matter how much she tries to catch them and retrieve them from the river, she can't. And out of her sadness and frustration, she commits suicide and leaps into the water and kills herself. And so the most beautiful woman in the town never found out who killed her children and why, or where her children went to. Where did the river take them? But there is a happy side in my mom's story, is that the children survive, and the bodies of the children are taken from the river to the bank of the yard of the evil witch. And she makes a potion to resuscitate them, to make them come back to life, but she also makes a potion to make them invisible to anyone in the town. So the most beautiful woman of the town does die. She doesn't come back, but since she has so much pain, she cannot peacefully go up into heaven, and she has to haunt the streets and the rivers of the town to try to find them, as well as the person who killed them. But she can never do both. She has never, the tale says, she's never been able to find either. So she's just a restless spirit for all of eternity. And people say that even to this day, you can see La Llorona, the wailing woman, in the sky, flying or walking on the streets. Some say that she steals children who are unaccompanied by their parents or by an adult after the sun goes down. The end.